Hi, everyone. This is Dhara Singh. This is the Stories to Sales podcast with none other than Dr. Rachel Evans. Dr. Rachel Evans is a chartered psychologist who specializes in eating disorder therapy. And so inspiring to see because I crossed paths with Dr. Rachel Evans when we did a coaching certification a couple of years back. And there's so many people who go on and have built successful careers and businesses. But you can always tell when someone has a personal connection to the work they do and their heart and soul is super connected to it. And I wanted to bring Dr. Rachel's you on today because I've been following your journey on social media, and I think it's just a very interesting niche you have. And without further ado, I would love for you to introduce yourself and the type of work you do.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I never refer to myself as doctor actually, but just so people know, I've got a PhD in psychology, so I'm that kind of doctor, not a medical doctor. So yeah, what work do I do? Well, actually, I'm not sure what questions you're going to ask me, but I was pondering this podcast beforehand, sure. And I was thinking, actually, since I started describing my work a little bit differently, people have been responding to it differently. So I used to say I'm an eating disorder recovery psychologist because that is kind of it in a nutshell. But actually, since I started describing the kind of clients that I work with and the specifics, because I think there are a lot of people struggling who don't fit in a category of an eating disorder, or maybe they don't notice themselves, they wouldn't give themselves that label. So I started saying I'm working with people who are restricting, people who are binge eating. So that might be that you're feeling really out of control around food, you're eating a large amount of food, you're feeling guilty about it. And I really specialize in helping people who are then compensating for that in ways they're getting more and more extreme. So maybe like making themselves throw up, or like really, really obsessive exercise, which is, taking over. Like maybe you're not attending some family events because you need to exercise, you're waking up super early to exercise, that sort of thing. Maybe people taking misusing laxatives, so that sort of thing. And actually it's really interesting, since I started describing that, loads more people have told me, oh, I used to do that. Is that, something maybe I could have got help for that behavior? So I just think it's really, and my hairdresser started telling me all about their journey. So yeah, that's one side, that's what I do. And like you say, we met through Yes, so that's neuro-linguistic programming. I also do hypnotherapy, and I've done more qualifications for emotional freedom techniques. So I like to bring a variety of kind of different tools and techniques because different people prefer different kind of modalities. And yeah, I'm in the UK. I've got a husband. I think, was I married when I did
2 kittens as well as 2 kids?
Oh,
right?
kids. 2 kids.
Yeah. Okay.
2 cats and 2 kids.
No, I love that. And first of all, like with this introduction, what I just loved what you said was that you don't box all your clients into a certain niche anymore. And I think that's so freeing because in a way, in everyday language, like when you're starting a business, when I want to go into your story and your impact and everything, but everyday people don't know all these fancy terms as much as feelings, as much as, really their day-to-day experiences. So I love that, you started with that. And I think no better way to get, transition in. Would love to know, where did this passion for this work come from? Like, what was the day where you were like, this is who I want to help, this is how I want to do it?
Oh, I'm not sure about the day. So I feel like since I was young, I was always interested to be a counselor or something like that, or like books that I would read as a teenager were maybe books about someone who had been adopted and was like struggling with that and kind of had some hardships, or I would probably call it trauma now. So I was really interested in sort of supporting people that way. I thought I was going to do educational psychology and work with children, but that kind of didn't work out, and I ended up doing a master's in health psychology. And then unfortunately, I just became more and more obsessed about being healthy. Like it started off really positive, but then I ended up like just being so anxious, like if I couldn't do a workout, that it would take over my day, and that's what I would prioritize: food and exercise over other things, like to the detriment of, like I was saying earlier, like my relationships and things like that. And yeah, I just started restricting more and more because I think once you're in it a little bit, and I was following more social media accounts saying like this is a healthy diet, that's a healthy diet, but a lot of the rules are conflicting. So I remember actually like Googling like healthy gingerbread man recipe, and one was like, oh, this one is healthy because it uses nuts, not flour. And then the next one is like, oh, this is a low fat recipe. And then the nut recipe wasn't low fat. And so I just got so tangled up and confused in all these things when actually looking back at it now, there's a lot more going on. Like I've realized now I got a lot of my self worth from studying and doing sports, and I'd stopped those things. And sort of then my attention turned to food. So I started off as restricting. I was never diagnosed with an eating disorder, but actually like lots of the thoughts, lots of the behaviors that I was having, like almost creating rituals around food, are characteristic maybe of someone who does have a diagnosis of an eating disorder, but actually my weight didn't get so low that I was ever diagnosed with anorexia or something like that. But I was really struggling, and like I say, I was taking over everything. I worked abroad for 8 months in Singapore, and everyone was like, oh, did you have a fantastic time? And I had a really awful time. Mostly, like some bits were really lovely, but actually I couldn't just go out for a meal with someone because I was so stressed about it. Like I say, just food was taking over. And it was so weird because one part of me was like, I absolutely should be doing this. And then the other part of me was realizing what I was missing out on, but it wasn't enough to tip the scales to make me change.
And these struggles, this was happening when you were a master's student?
So this was after I finished my master's. So it started during my master's actually. I think when I was stressing like, what am I going to have as my career? Because I feel like if you go into something like you're going to be a medical doctor, you can see the pathway to get there. Whereas psychology, you go in first year, and in England, like you wouldn't be a psychologist when you have done a psychology undergraduate degree. You need to do the training, and they just make it seem so hard to do like clinical, which is maybe then you would work with, you know, the people who have got a diagnosis from the DSM, like this is someone with depression, you would work with them and sort of stuff like that. So I was smart, I got a good mark, but I was just like, oh no, it's too hard, I can't do that. It almost scared me off. Like I say, I was going to do educational maybe to work with children, but then that didn't work out. I didn't manage to get the work experience that I needed. So I think I just felt very like, I kind of know what I want to do, but they're making it kind of hard for me to get there and have this direction.
So in a way, it's like you were going through these personal career identity reflections, and then at the same time, it seems you were consuming so much influx of information online about what healthy is, how healthy looks, what things to eat. And I'm going to be honest, you are brave enough to share that you were going through this, but on a day-to-day basis, oh my God, I wonder how many people are feeling the same. Like social media in so many ways is such a helpful tool because we have people like you giving all this helpful information. But then when you go on TikTok, when you know, especially for the younger generation, I wonder how much possibly worse it could have gotten with how people feel about themselves and so much. And how do you feel from the time you were a master's student or had accomplished your master's all the way to now? Do you see that maybe cases of body dysmorphia, of, you know, binge eating, could it possibly have exacerbated or gotten worse?
I think COVID especially had a big impact for a lot of people. So when I was doing my master's, it was like 2012, 2013. And actually like Instagram was only just becoming popular. I think before then a lot of people had like Facebook. TikTok wasn't around. Was Twitter? I'm not sure. I didn't have Twitter at that point if it was around. So it's mostly Instagram. So I think it was the very first like maybe wave of clean eating. Like I guess it had been in other forms of diets before then, but it seemed like very big around that time with influencers like eat your chia seeds and, you know, drink a kale smoothie, which seems on the face of it very positive. So I guess they were saying it's less about your body now. It's almost like dieting was uncool. You know, had this other stuff. So I get, well, actually, no, that's a lie. It was aesthetics as well, because I followed some influencers in Australia who were doing their like 12-week program to get abs and that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess it was there as well. And to be honest, so I was very interested in health promotion. So I was thinking like, oh, we need to stop everyone eating too much sugar. We need to stop people smoking, like that sort of approach, rather than now my approach would be more like, okay, how does it feel for that individual when they're eating this amount of sugar or that amount of sugar, and making it more individual. And thinking
Mm-hmm.
like, well, there's probably a lot of sugar in birthday cakes, but we like to have a celebration. There's more to it than just follow these guidelines and you're going to be healthy.
Right.
Like, what is
There's
it for
so
that
much.
person?
So when in your work right now, like when you deal with clients, you focus on the context too of their lives and like why is someone going for that extra loaf of cake? Why like there's so much more like if you if I was your client and you came to me and you told me you can't do this, you can't do that, you can put chia seeds on your bagels or whatever. Um, it wouldn't be probably as effective either, right? Like, have you found that in your practice, in building your business, that working with clients, you have to really understand their motivators? And yeah, so I'm very curious about how the work you do and how you approach that with clients.
Yeah, I mean, I realize I didn't answer your previous question about have eating
Okay,
disorders
yeah,
gone up. I feel like,
yeah,
yeah, to your point, it has been very influenced by TikTok, and I've had people coming in saying like, I want to look like that person, and we have to have the conversation. That person doesn't even look like that person when they're in that photo, like, posing and lighting, and so I think it really has, and I think, like I said, lockdown. I think there's so many more pressures on young people now than when I was young. Or maybe I just blocked some of it out. But I think even that connection on
yeah.
social media that they can't almost get away from their friends, and I think people grow up faster, so there's that point. And then with my clients, yeah, I don't specifically tell them what to do. So I kind of say what I do is a blend of like coaching, mentoring, and therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess coaching is like don't give people answers. I think sometimes people might benefit from some education about certain, I'm not a nutritionist, but maybe about certain types of food or like how your brain might work a certain way, and that sort of thing. But I wouldn't be like, right, you need to eat X, Y, and Z today, because like you say, then that's probably
Got
going
it.
to backfire, and the person's going to want to eat something else. So I think it is, I guess, with the stuff that we did when we were training, like empowering that
Mm-hmm.
person to learn for themselves, you know, what might be a good option for them, or
Like
even just having that support and accountability to try all different stuff out. And if it doesn't work out, at least you still learn something from it.
I love that because in your work, you're not like you're making sure that the client you have is an active participant in their journey and feels that sense of ownership. And I think sometimes when you strip that away, it has like the opposite effect. So I love that you're doing this. I think speaking in the past with like on this podcast with other professionals as well, it seems the good news here. It seems that everyone so far is coming from a healthy place of empowering their clients to really take ownership. And so from a when you look at your peers in the industry, like you've built your practice, like when you look at other peers, what do you think you do differently that maybe your other peers, other therapists, maybe not don't do? Like, what makes you stand out in your approach?
Oh, okay. Good question. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of like psychologists, like a big thing for me actually when we were doing the training together was that I wanted to offer people support between sessions. So someone like a recovery coach, who maybe hasn't, done sort of therapy style training, they do tend to offer that support between sessions. But it just seemed very much like we were told not to do that when I was training. And then I literally went on the website of the British Psychological Society and was like looking like, am I allowed to do this, or not? And it doesn't really say anything that you are or you're not. So I guess I offer that as a psychologist, offering that is not so common. And that's just because, like, whenever I'm a client, like when I've had therapy or, when I've had a coach or something, I really like knowing that someone's there, that I could message them if I had a problem. And I do see with my clients, actually, a lot of them say maybe they leave me a voice note. They've already talked themselves around in the voice note anyway. So they're not like depending on me. I'm there for the support. But they are telling me the skills already that they've learned when they're leaving me that message and saying what's difficult, or reflecting on a win. So I think that is one. And then the other thing why I decided to work in private practice is so that I could have the freedom to choose which other modalities I want to learn. to help people. So I tried to cover, like, we've got somatics with like emotional freedom technique, hypnotherapy, because I was just feeling before I did that, sometimes people seem to have something so fundamental going on that you're just not getting to by talking to them. And the kind of hypnotherapy I do, we will pick a specific question. So it might be like, why do you feel guilty about eating? And then the client will be talking to me in the hypnotherapy session, and then it usually comes out it's like nothing to do with actual food, what they're carrying this guilt about. But I feel like if I just asked them, they wouldn't have told me that.
So in your experience with your business, with your practice, I mean, I want you to keep it confidential, or, you know, not obviously protect, like, we want to protect every client's business here. What do you find usually tends to be the root of, like, what's the actual root of these issues? Like, when it comes to maybe someone who's overeating, is it, life has so many different stresses, so I'm just curious in your experience. Everyone, yeah.
Yeah, so good question. Let me think. I guess often that they have learned somewhere that food is a way to cope with emotions, I guess, in terms of overeating and even restricting as well. Like, if you restrict, it can blunt your emotions. So that they've learned that somewhere along the line, but then also probably like weight changes have been reinforced. So maybe they did lose weight at some point, and that was, you know, had positive comments about that, or they were maybe in a larger body as a child and they have memories of being bullied or kind of singled out about that. And I think often when people are overeating, they're really trying not to, like, they're restricting, which then backfires. Like, most people who have been on a diet know, you go on the diet for so long and then you're like, oh, I'm off the wagon, so let me eat everything now. And like I say, for my clients, then feeling like they're out of control, that then they want to try and make up for that in some way that actually is physiologically then harming their body. Like the mental distress of those things. Like, so in my story, we didn't get to that then I was making myself throw up at one point, like multiple times a day, and it felt like it was just taking over. And that was while I was doing my PhD in the second year. And so that's why I was like, right, I think it helps that I've had that experience, because I did have a therapist when I was coming out of the restriction phase, but she didn't really understand about binging, in that I was like, I am so compelled to go and eat that. It's not like I've just had a few biscuits and now I think I'll eat some more. It's like, I just cannot stop that urge to go in the kitchen and eat stuff that, like, I know is my housemate's food. Or when I was living at home, I know it's my mum's food and I have to go out at 6 o'clock to the supermarket as soon as it opens and replace it, but I just can't stop myself. It's like that level that I think people don't always understand.
I mean, hey, I drink a lot of coffee. I'm working on it, but I can't imagine that. I think that line you just said in itself, where it's that compulsion, that addiction, that supermarket opens this time, that it doesn't matter if it's the roommate's food, I need. This is a serious thing, you know? Like, it's something, like, if people are struggling with this, it can be often a little embarrassing to even talk about. So, yeah, please continue.
Yeah, I think as well, because often, like, I guess restricting gets held up as like almost a better eating disorder in a way, because if you think of eating disorders, you probably think of anorexia like a thin, probably white, you know, middle class girl, don't you? What's an eating disorder, but actually there's a lot of other people who are affected by these things. And like I say, I don't always like to put it in the box of eating disorder, because some of the stuff that people are struggling with wouldn't get a classification according to the DSM, but, you know, it's really problematic for them, and, you know, stopping them from doing the things that they want to do in their life. And like you say, people can be embarrassed or ashamed because it's not what they want to be doing, or, you know, society tells us, oh, eat less of this, eat this way, and then we'll think you're a good person almost, and then suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? And even like you said, this is a coffee chat, so just to get very blunt, like when I was making myself throw up, it was so strange, because I just had this whole mindset shift of, like, when I was little, I hated being sick, obviously, like, people don't like to throw up, and then it got to the point that I liked it, and then I was binging to make myself sick, because actually it gives you endorphins, and, you know, has other functions as well. And I think that's where I was saying, if I don't just do coaching, because sometimes people don't understand these things, that once they can understand that, So for me, when I was recovering, I didn't just stop overnight. I ended up having a period that I was binging, but I was like, I cannot make myself throw up because that is just going to carry on this cycle. Every time I do that, it's like felt like I get out of jail free. So to stop this, I need to stop that behavior first, and then have to just sit with, okay, I've eaten way more than I thought I was going to, and that I'm comfortable with, but let me get comfortable, which I think is why, sorry to go on a rant, I think it's really important to have lots of different tools to teach clients to how do you deal with that feeling when, like, I don't know, this is it sounds like a bit overkill, but like you feel like you're trying to rip your skin off and not be there, but you have to sit there and not do the thing that you know is going to harm you.
This is, I have to be honest. Everyone I speak to or talk to has such a unique story, and I have to admit, at one point, it probably wasn't easy for you to share your own story, right? And this is something like this podcast is called Stories to Sales, but in my work with like entrepreneurs, one of the things is being able to share your story in a way where it allows you to create impact, and you gotta kind of get over the fear. So what you just shared with me, were there times where you were kind of scared to go out and share that, hey, I've actually been through this. I've been through the thing I'm trying to help you with?
Yeah, so actually in the start of my business, so I realized that the PhD wasn't for me. It was a research PhD, and it can feel quite isolating because no one knows your topic as much as you. And actually our office was open plan, so you couldn't really just have a chat with anyone. So I realized that wasn't for me. I realized that I wanted to start working with clients. But actually the first things that I started doing were like emotional eating, because it felt a little bit safer than talking about binging. So it was almost like a euphemism for binging. So I kind of started doing that, and I did a collaboration like with the yoga studio, and we did like a little challenge and stuff. Yeah, so mostly I was talking about emotional eating, or I was talking about like, oh, let me help you get healthier habits, because actually part of my PhD was about habits, so that made sense.
Right.
And then I think once I did specific training to work with people with eating disorders, I think then I felt more confident to kind of start marketing in that way and changing my website. Because actually another side of my story, it's tricky for me that we haven't mentioned, I did actually have a health food Instagram and a health food blog, and I actually won like awards for my blog and stuff, which I actually had to delete it. I think it was 2020, because I was like, this is so not aligned with me. I mean, I never said anything like this is a bad food, but it was more like, let's try and put vegetables and fruit into everything we ever make. Which, yes, okay, eating fruit and vegetables is probably going to be healthy.
Adds a lot of pressure,
but
though.
Also, I just have a cake that's a cake. You don't need a fruit and vegetable in every cake. Like,
right. Put a broccoli on a chocolate cake. I couldn't imagine a world like that. But
I mean, I did have an avocado cake that was actually really good. It did taste nice. It's got lots of weekends on Pinterest. So yeah, I was doing all that, and that was almost like, because a healthy person, but in behind the scenes, I was eating those foods and I was living that life, but I was also making myself throw up like every day. So I think I just had to let go of that. I can't remember your question now. We got on a tangent, but like,
yeah,
I had to let go of that
basically,
to then start speaking about this and being
do you feel? Yeah, no, I love how honest you are, by the way, in this conversation, because you never know who's listening and who's going through what right now. And I'm happy you shared your story, but I'm also happy because, you're a professional, you're a therapist, and in a way, like things like coaching, like you're different because you're an actual therapist and you have that research experience. If you were only a coach, it would be different because coaching is unregulated. So for you to get these credentials and then make that ethical move, like, hey, now I can do this in my market, I can talk about my experience, I actually think that's very responsible of you. And if anything, that's a good tip for a lot of entrepreneurs who, share your story, but keep in mind who you're sharing it to and how we can be more ethical in what we, how we approach things. So do you feel... Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just jump in on you? Yeah, because I have actually had business coaches and done business courses and stuff, and they say, "I'll do this to sell, do a sales call like this." And quite often to me, it feels like it is unethical because I feel like I am working with a vulnerable population. If people have got all this going on, like I think some of the business courses were very focused on like make 10K a month, do this like, okay, yes, obviously I need my business to make money because it's my actual job. um, but also I want clients who want to work with me. I want clients who feel aligned to want what I'm offering, because then they're going to get the best out of it. I don't want to try and be, reeling people in through
Yeah.
desperation, which obviously not every business coach is like that, but a couple kind of that I had made me just feel a bit like, oh, I'm not too sure,
They didn't,
how this
I
is.
mean, yeah, it's easy to give that generic advice. Like, I know I coach people with how to share their story, help extract them through a journalism lens, then spread that message across different outlets. But in a lot of ways, like, it's a lot of like, there's so many different layers to it. First of all, in sharing your story, I don't think you need to share everything, every angle you've been through. It's kind of what's intentional. And then two, like you said, that ethical layer. And three, with all these, like, obviously I do storytelling, but with business coaches, it's so easy to give this generic one size fits all advice when everyone is following such a unique journey.
Yeah, I had a good point when you were talking earlier about the ethics. And oh yeah, I think it, like you were saying about the telling the story, I think as well when you learn to be a psychologist, there's also a lot of stuff about disclosure and how much you're going to say to the client about your story. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm way over that line. Like I'm quite open. If someone asks me a question, I feel like some psychologists would almost, like, you shouldn't ask why question, should you? But almost like, why do you want to know that? Why is that important to you? Which I think, is important in a sense. But also if they want to know my experience of recovery, I'm happy to answer those questions as well, because I think it can be relationship building. I'm saying, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal. I'm not saying this is what you
Right.
want to do, but if you did want to know how was it for me, I would be
So
happy to tell you.
I think from a business perspective, this is really unique. Like, okay, Rachel, I have to be honest with you. So many times when I look at entrepreneurs online, this and that, you can't help but feel that there are people who treat everyone equally. And then there are people who put themselves on a pedestal where it's very hard to connect with them. And so, with your approach to business, both like overall, like I really respect the fact that even with your own clients, you don't always treat it like you're on a pedestal. It's more like you make it very easy to connect with you. So, and I want to ask this, as a therapist, how is it sharing your own story with your clients? Like, what are the barriers, and like what are the boundaries here?
Yeah, good question. I feel like the eating stuff, I'm like happy to share that. And also, I think I have to take
Yes.
into consideration, like, so when I was struggling, if I read content about eating disorders online, like if I looked at stuff about fear foods and someone was saying, like, oh, I'm eating this food and it feels really scary, but I'm going to do it, like, that would make me add that food to the bad list, not
Mm-hmm.
actually be like, oh, she's eating it. Great. I could do the same. Like, I was so deep in those unhelpful thoughts that I would take it really bad. I would take it badly and it would like be harming me. So I think I have recently been like, do you know what? I am going to give more specific examples, and I am going to maybe TMI stuff about being sick, not the graphic details, but stuff that I think people can relate to. So I feel like I have changed that a bit recently, but I guess with my
Mm-hmm.
clients, I would get an understanding of what they're struggling with already, I guess, from their intake and from talking to them. So I guess I'd know how to pitch it in terms of
And
details that I would go into about things. Very much shame about that, because it's like if I wasn't drunk, I wouldn't have done it. But I was in a different country, I was really lonely, and like I
yeah.
think when I was doing my eating disorder training, there was this activity that we did, like a lifeline, almost to how we got to this point, and that's the kind of thing I do with my clients. And I think for realizing other people that have gone through what I'd gone to, maybe at that point they would have made a similar choice. And
Right.
also, some people do that for fun and find it empowering and
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
do that every
To each
week. So
their.
there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
inherently, apart from you, I don't know if it's legal or not, but like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing inherently bad about the behavior. It's just how I was feeling. So sometimes I do share that. I mean, I probably do it in slightly
Yeah.
different terms. That was a quick rundown, but like sometimes I do share that with my clients, but like I'm like, should I be sharing this? Do they think I'm judging people who do that? So there's some other personal stuff that maybe I think is sometimes helpful
Leave.
for clients, but I'm like, oh, this feels like, should I be sharing this? But no one has a list of what you
I
should and
mean,
shouldn't.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure like with your profession, there are certain guidelines, but to be honest, I mean, if you open those doors, I think people would feel even more comfortable to share with you. So, looking into your like business so far and your own practice, I think what if you had any advice for how people can really market their story too? What do you think has helped you achieve the success you have? Like, what do you think you do in terms of your storytelling, your marketing, your messaging that people, maybe aspiring entrepreneurs or colleagues or peers listening to this, can take away?
Yeah, I think it's what you were saying earlier about like almost just being honest and being like, okay, this thing did happen, this is how it is now. So actually one of my most popular posts on Instagram, it's not a recent one, because I'm still getting to grips with reels. This was pre-reels. It was actually a picture of some peanut butter and me talking about how I used to binge on it and like I couldn't have it in the house because it was such like a I was so scared of it that I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people commented on that, like me too.
Oh,
Like
wow,
honestly, I'm
look
just
at
silent
that.
because it's just the people
Yeah.
are like, oh my gosh, I feel so seen because of this. And I, did comment like how things are different now to just feels like another food now, so I can have a bit or not have it. Like, and also, I used to be so obsessed about the exact ingredients in it as well, and that just took over everything. I remember I went to my boyfriend's house and I was stood in front of the cupboard thinking for 10 minutes, like, well, maybe not 10 minutes, but literally a good few minutes, like, shall I eat this peanut butter? Shall I not? Like, I don't want to think about food in that level of detail anymore. So I think like just sharing that and people can see themselves in that
And
story.
from what it seems, when you shared those posts that probably went viral or got all those comments and Me Too's, it's not like you overthought it. You were like, hey, this is an honest experience I have. I'm just going to share it from the heart and put it out there. And from what it seems, you didn't think too much about the outcome and may have been a little bit of surprise that this peanut butter related post got the traction it did.
I did actually get a client from it as well who
Oh,
booked a
a
discovery
what?
call after
Sorry?
that post, a client
Wow.
from
Wow.
that post.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really easy to overthink, especially now since so I was on maternity leave for quite a while with my
Right.
kids. My first kid, I actually went back after 3 months, but with my daughter, because then I had two children, I literally had them like just over a year apart. So I didn't get any
Wow.
sleep for ages. So I was off basically most of 2023, a bit of 2024. So I came back and I was like, what are reels? I've just been hiding under a rock about this. And I think
Wait,
people
this
overthink
is
all of the
yeah,
marketing.
this is so important what you just said. And I think for anyone listening, a lot of people are struggling with this. When they go through a certain life phase, having kids, going through something, they already started a business, it's getting traction, suddenly life is happening, other elements of life. And now they have to come back and like take where things they left off, or even if they were doing things from behind the scenes, like what advice, and like you said, you came back into this world where now you're learning what reels are, different types of storytelling. What did, what's your advice to someone who life is happening, they're either taking a pause, now they have to pick things back up? Like, what is your advice to them?
I suppose it depends what situation you were in. Like, I didn't
Right.
actually get a client for a couple of months after I decided to come back. I was like, oh, where are all the clients? Well, yeah, of course, probably only posted on stories a couple of times or like your feed a couple of times. And I never nurture my email list. So I just pop up every so often. So I
Right.
didn't really have all of that in place. So I think if you can, I guess have patience and be doing the things that you should be
Mm-hmm.
doing, no, not should, could be doing to get a client and almost just have that faith. Because then so I was doing a business coaching with my friend who
Yeah.
is also an eating disorder recovery therapist, and she had a
Oh,
group
okay.
program. So I was like, actually, do you know what? Let me get a bit of community and like get in the vibe. And she did this amazing training, which was basically what we've been saying about like connecting to
Mm-hmm.
your whys and your story. And then I posted some posts about that and actually got way more interaction um, on that. So I think that was such a boost. Like, I don't think if I had that, I think I would have just been stressing myself out and going in circles. So I guess from
I
that,
so
maybe find community. I don't know.
No, I love that because you know what's funny when I started my business accidentally late 2019. Then we got certified in 2020, I believe. But the funny thing was in 2023, when I went through the unexpected pause of, losing a parent. Then behind the scenes, I was doing done-for-you marketing for folks rather than playing such a forward coaching role. Some people came through, but I love what you said, because in a way, now that I'm taking more of the public reins again, it is kind of the community and connection I built before the pause that really came into the picture. Like, some of the people I worked with this year are people I met at networking events, conferences, or group things from years back. And so if anyone's listening to this and you're going through a life transition, you have potential, you've proven it before, Rachel is pointing to two, three amazing things here. One, tap back into your community, tap back into your story, and anything else you would like to add?
No, I'm just thinking, when I went to my first business networking after having children, I was like, oh, how do I have a normal conversation? I've been talking about nappies and children's things for so long that I oh, let's talk to people again. But it was nice.
And one of the last few questions I want to ask, do you find that now, these life transitions you went through, being a mom, being a mom, X, Y, and Z, other things you've been through, if anything, do you think they've strengthened your path in having your practice? Do you find it, are there any advantages when new life developments happen and you're building your business? How can you use all this to your advantage?
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely the flexibility. So I didn't want to go back to work full time. So I work 3 days a week now, which has its advantages, because obviously I get to spend more time with my kids. Disadvantages when you feel like you've got so much to do. And so my kids right now are 2 and 3. So when they're around, I basically can't think of anything else. But yeah, I think having that flexibility, and also, I guess, knowing that you can turn it up or you can turn it down. And I can also choose clients who want to work with me. I think if I was, working for an organization, I just get lovely clients. I really do. I really like my clients. They're all so fantastic. But it's like we were saying before, they've chosen to work with me because they connect with me. I think that's the advantage. And also I feel more passionate about it than maybe if I got a 9 to 5. And then I'd be stressing out about getting home and cooking dinner and picking my kids up from nursery. So I think for me, the big advantage is the flexibility. I'm not going to pretend I get consistent income. I don't. It's still a bit up and down and this and that, because you have more or less going on in your life.
Let's be real. Isn't that the journey of a lot of business owners? But how many people authentically can talk about that? And for anyone listening, I think this is so helpful, because everything you've said, Rachel, is just going to make another person feel more seen. From the work you do, to the honest ups and downs in your own business, to the life transitions, to attracting your dream clients by being authentic. Anyone who's listening to this knows that it's not a perfect journey. But if you see what Rachel has been able to do, I hope you can be inspired and know it's possible for you.
Thank you so much. I'm a little pep talk from you too.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm always very inspired. You can always tell by the energy when someone really loves what they do. And when it's so unique, for me, I reached out to you. I was so curious. I was like, Rachel, we were part of this cohort together. Rachel does this unique specialty, but I want to know, what is Rachel's story? I'm also personally curious, but then all these tidbits can really help other people who want to start their business, who are in the middle of different seasons. And partially with the Stories to Sales podcast, one of the things I really want to do is help people feel seen, that all these successful people have had seasons of ups and downs, and life has also been happening. So don't feel like you're alone. So Rachel, as we wrap this up, what's one tidbit you would like to leave the audience with?
Oh, one tidbit. I guess I'm used to doing recovery style podcasts, and change is possible. It's usually my finishing thing, but I think that's also relevant Now I guess like I do have times that maybe my mindset is not so positive, and then you have to kind of kick yourself into gear a little bit, don't you? And be like, actually, maybe I can do that thing. So I guess even with this, your business, it's possible to grow a business that works for you.
I love that. Hey, anything's possible. I know it sometimes sounds like Disneyland up front or Disney movies, but it truly is because, I mean, no one's life is perfect. And if you want to connect with Rachel, what we're going to do is I'm going to leave Rachel's bio, her IG, so you can follow her, stay connected, and so many more stories to unfold. So with that, thank you, Rachel, for your time today. So appreciate our conversation. And stay tuned for next week for another episode of the Stories to Sales podcast. See you guys soon. Bye, Rachel.